News of the day. There's some bad, there's some good stuff in there, and there's some interesting in there as well. I'm just gonna jump into the bad. Matt Murray, if you're a Penguins fan and you haven't heard, apparently he's got a concussion. Matt Murray, who's young, it's too early to say he's injury prone, but it's gonna be out there. Um, and Matt Murray, if he's injured for any length of time, it does open an interesting question as to whether or not you're going to trust DeSmith and Jari as the goaltenders for the Pittsburgh Penguins for an extended period. But again, with concussions, that's the funny thing, right? Because you can be out for a few weeks, or you could be out for 10 months like Corey Crawford's been. So it is a very, very dicey thing when you're dealing with a concussion. Speaking of dicey, Brian Elliot of the Philadelphia Flyers is becoming vocal about the smaller chest protectors, basically. Now, they've made some padding smaller for goaltenders, and we're talking about goals being up, and maybe this is related, and maybe what he's talking about is why it's related. He says that after 2 games, he already is all bruised and banged up. They made chest protectors smaller. The collarbone, the shoulder, in particular, it seems like, are a little more exposed, or if not exposed, they're not as well protected as they were with the old pads. This is where we've got to be careful. You got to shrink down the equipment, okay, but safety, right? And what Elliot's saying basically is he's all banged and bruised up. What it reminded me of, though, was I'm trying to think. I think it was John Davidson who was talking about how as a goaltender he was bruised and banged up all the time, and goaltenders now with their equipment they weren't. So maybe this is part and parcel of the NHL trying to go backwards, or it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because if goalies are getting banged up, and if we end up seeing injuries, obviously not a concussion won't be affected by this, but if we start seeing injuries coming out of smaller equipment, the equipment is going to get changed back. It'll happen. So Elliot's, and he's not the first one. There's other goalies that have come out and said the smaller equipment does not work for them. There's a $70 million training center being planned for Seattle. I've got Seattle Sockeye up there. I put Sockeye because Sockeyes was the team name that won a Seattle Times competition. I don't think you pluralize Sockeye to Sockeyes. And if you do, I don't like it. I just call them the Sockeye. I don't think you have to pluralize that. But the $70 million training center is going to be fun. They're talking about 3 sheets of ice for their practice facility, and really, honestly, it's gonna happen. This is coming. Last night for the San Jose game, this is Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns, Logan Couture, and the Sharks. Their only trip to New York to face the Islanders all year. 8,790 fans in attendance. You cannot move this team to a new building fast enough. The only issue I have with it is this. So they moved from Nassau to Barclays, and Barclays has been just an absolute disaster. And now they're moving into a new building. Their attendance in New York for the New York Islanders has been bad for a very, very long time. And it extends to before they were in Barclays. So I see that. And yes, you can look and say, well, once they're in the new arena, it won't be a problem. I don't know. It could be. It really, really could be. And then it turns into an uncomfortable conversation if you have this brand new state-of-the-art facility and you're still not drawing. So I'll keep an eye on where the Islanders' attendance goes from here, but that's a sad total. By any numbers, that's a sad total. You got junior games in Canada where you can get 8,000 people. And today, the Sheffield Steelers of the British League named Tom Barrasso their head coach. So Tom Barrasso, 2-time Stanley Cup winner with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's fun to see that. It's an interesting little item, so I thought I'd throw it into the news of the day. And, all the best to Tom. Tom was known as being kind of temperamental and kind of isolated on his own, but genuinely a very solid goaltender, and I would imagine he'd be a very solid coach. So like I said, all the best to him and to Sheffield. Rick Nash's agent has come out and said he's not retiring, which is interesting because we're watching as Hosa's career has ended suddenly, and other careers are just seemingly just stopping. And Nash looks like another one of those guys that everything's fine, and then all of a sudden he's out, like Zetterberg in Detroit, for example. But he's saying he's not retiring. Now, whether that's being sent as a message because he wants NHL teams to remember he's on the radar, or if he's genuinely hoping to come back, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Because let's say Nash comes out in December and says, okay, I'm going to play. I can't see anybody giving him above a couple million, only because there's so many teams that are near the cap. And for any team that would take a chance with him, there's some risk because he didn't sign as a free agent in July. He did pull himself off the market. He left a lot of money on the table by doing this, and I respect that completely. So hopefully Nash makes the best decision for himself, his family, and other considerations. Barrett Hayden has been sent back to the Ontario Hockey League by the Arizona Coyotes. Smart move. Maybe Arizona's already starting to see that this can be another long year. And if they are, then I agree with keeping a kid out of this. One that was just drafted in June, for example. But it'll be interesting to see what Arizona does with the rest of their roster. How long do you wait before you start sending guys to the American League who we thought were going to be there this year? How many more shutouts do you have to go through? For Vancouver, since I did my preview, both Del Zotto and Mott are listed as healthy scratches for tonight. It's noteworthy because this is the first time Del Zotto's been a healthy scratch for the Canucks. And if Del Zotto can't make it into the Canucks lineup, that doesn't bode well going forward. Because the Canucks blue line is not great. And Mott being scratched is kind of a surprise to me. But this means that Tim Schaller makes his debut tonight for Vancouver versus Carolina. And that, I think, is a good addition. I really think Schaller's a good addition. And also with Canucks news, Elias Pettersson became the 7th rookie since 1991 to have 5 points in his first 2 games. The others are Jesper Bratt, Vlad Tarasenko, Anze Kopitar, Brent Seabrook, Radim Verbata, and Alex Daig. Yes, Alexander Daig was not always a flop. I've told people before. His first few years in the NHL, it looked like he was going to be an excellent young forward. It's just a matter of taking that next step. And then instead of taking that next step, he regressed, and it fell apart. But there you go. So some good news, some bad news, and of course, a cranky Elliot are the headlines of the day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.